Hello everyone, my name is Roy Panetta, and I'll start by going over the agenda for today's presentation. We'll start by giving you a brief overview of DrayTek switches, and then next we'll look at the different types of DrayTek switches, and then we'll follow this by a discussion of VLAN configuration and its applications, and then we'll look at network security and spanning tree protocol, and then also we'll look at quality of service, 82.1 AD and trunking, and then finally we'll look at a new feature that DrayTek are introducing, and this is called central switch management. So Edward will cover that topic for you later in the presentation. So I'll just start with an overview and look at the features of DrayTek switches. So here we have a list of the features offered by DrayTek switches, and the DrayTek switches are manageable. They support both PoE and gigabit LANs, and fiber connectivity to the backbone with combo and UTP SFP ports, and VLAN support for broader security and segmentation for network administrators. Also got advanced security for remote access, IP source guard, 82.1 X access control, and access control list to prevent unauthorized access, dedicated voice VLAN to prioritize voice traffic, spanning tree loop protection and port mirroring, and advanced quality of service for application traffic prioritization. So it's a bit of a list there. So now we'll just go to the next slide, and we'll look at the different types of DrayTek switches that are now available. And and there are three types of switches, and these are layer 2 managed switches, web smart managed switches, and power over Ethernet switches. So we'll give a bit more detail next few slides for these ones. So let's go to the next one. So first of all, we'll look at power over Ethernet switches. These deliver both power and data, and a stable power supply to PoE devices, such as IP phones, IP cameras, and wireless access points over Ethernet LAN cabling. In the real world, such devices tend to be mounted where no AC wiring is provided. So this eliminates the need to install a power cabling, and hence reducing installation costs. These switches can supply up to 30 watts of power from 802.3 AT PoE switch ports and 15.4 volts of power from 802.3 AF switch ports. And here in this slide, here we just show that the DrayTek PoE switches are currently available are the P1090, the 1090, and the VigorSwitch P2261. So the VigorSwitch P2261, which is the one towards the bottom of that table, is a 24-port gigabit power over Ethernet switch with 2 SFP ports, which will accept an optic fiber module. Some of the features in this switch include access control list to prevent unauthorized access, quality of service for application traffic prioritization, and a dedicated voice LAN to prioritize voice traffic automatically. The other switch, which is the one just above that one in the table, is the VigorSwitch P1090, and this is an 8-port gigabit Ethernet PoE switch, but it doesn't have all the features of the 24-port switch, but is suitable for small-scale solutions. So if it was like for a small office, or just power up a few IP phones or cameras and that sort of thing. So I'll go to the next slide, and here we've got a comparison chart showing the differences between the two PoE switches. So you'll notice that the P1090 has fewer features than the P2261, and it's a lower cost option for small installations. So it's only just part of the table there. You see it's the P1090 is just a very basic PoE switch. So which is probably okay for most installations anyway. And I'll just go to the next slide. And here we've got the other type of managed switch, which with no PoE functions. So the DrayTek Gigabit Ethernet Layer 2 switches are designed for small to medium-sized businesses, providing high performance and reliability. Standard features include VLAN network security, quality of service prioritization, bandwidth and traffic control, port mirroring, and bandwidth aggregation. The web-based user interface simplifies configuration and deployment of these switches. The VigorSwitch 1241, which is the one towards the top, is a new release model with 24 gigabit Ethernet ports, which supports both port mirroring and quality of service. And the next model down is the, which is pictured here, is the VigorSwitch G2260, which has 20 gigabit Ethernet ports and 2 SFP ports and 4 combo UTP SFP ports. So these combo ports can be either just Ethernet with an RJ45 connector, or if they plug in the SFP, it fails becomes a fiber connection. It also includes many of the features of the other switches. And I'll just have a look at the next slide where we have the comparison chart between these two switches. And you can see the differences, and these just quickly, but most of the details will be on our website. So if you need to study them, you can just go to our website, and they'll be available under the product pages. So now we look at the our next slide. We show how to increase the bandwidth between Vigor switches by aggregating multiple switch ports to form load-sharing truck groups. So see, we've got two switches with 4 connections between to provide, say, 4 gigabits per second bandwidth between them. So these port trunks are useful for switch-to-switch cascading to provide high-speed data links between switches, as you can see in this diagram. And the connections can be either Ethernet UTP cables or optic fiber cabling. And another aspect of these switches is that network traffic can be monitored or analyzed by utilizing the port mirroring function in Vigor switches. This is a handy diagnostic tool for forwarding ingress and egress traffic, which is receive and transmit traffic from a switch monitor port for analysis by a network analyzer or an administrator. And the DrayTek VigorSwitch's quality of service feature provides 8 queues to classify traffic types according to 802.1p VLAN priority tags, diffserv and or DSCP based. You can also prioritize traffic type based on the traffic's tolerance to network delays. Applications such as VoIP or video conferencing both require real-time delivery, so it can be prioritized to ensure satisfactory operation. And here we've got just a screenshot of the quality of service settings in the Vigor switches. So it's just the menu. You can just see some of the options that are available there. Now, some additional features include, we've got them just listed here, it's UTP and SFP ports for fiber connectivity. Combo ports that can be used for either gigabit LAN or a fiber connection, but they cannot be used simultaneously. And also we've got open standard GBIC gigabit interface cards are supported, and the SFP slot and modules can be used for switch uplinks, such as cascading for large switching networks or switching requirements. And the gigabit UTP ports conform to IEEE 802.3 AF PoE and support up to 15.4 watts of power. And some of the other features, you've got advanced security for remote access and IP source guard, 802.1x access control list to prevent unauthorized access. I think I mentioned some of these previously at the beginning, but just go through them again. And advanced quality of service for application traffic prioritization. And also there's preset options for IP phone, IP cameras, wireless devices, and plug and play for simple connectivity. And they also support IPv6 and IPv4. So now we'll just look at quickly at VLAN configuration and its applications. So VLANs, so we use VLANs to secure your network by creating logical groups, as we've tried to show in this diagram. And VLANs can span over multiple switches. So a workgroup can be located in many physical locations or floors within a building. So for example, the sales department may be located on, say, the first floor of a building, but one of the salespersons could be located on the second floor, and he can still be part of this sales VLAN. And another aspect is the IEEE 802.1q VLAN trunk. Means that only a single LAN cable connection is required between the router and the switch to create multiple VLANs between the router and attached switches. And up to 4,000 virtual LANs are supported. And in the Vigor P2261 switch, a preset VLAN profile with the appropriate level of quality of service for VoIP traffic can be assigned as well. And in a multi-switch installation, that's where you say you've got two or more switches. They can be configured to act as a single switch. And the backbone capacity can support data center requirements by using up to 8 concurrent switch trunks. That's where you aggregate the switch ports to provide a much greater bandwidth link between the switches. And there's another list here. We've got some additional features that are listed here, and I won't go just briefly. We've got the IEEE 802.1q VLAN, I802.1v VLAN. You've got Mac-based VLANs. There's a management VLAN and a private VLAN for edge devices, and also a voice VLAN. And in this diagram, we've got we just show a typical network implementation using a DrayTek switching solution. So here we have various VLANs for different services connected back to the main router and the internet. So now we'll just quickly go over network security and spanning tree protocol. So some of the security features in DrayTek switches are shown here. And the VigorSwitch P2261 supports SSH, SSL, and SNMP version 3, and that provides secure management. And the IP source guard blocks illegal IP addresses from accessing specific ports or receiving data packets. And the IEEE 802.1x port security is also supported. And the access control list ensures that only authorized users can access designated network resources. And the spanning tree protocol is a network protocol that ensures loop-free topology for any breached Ethernet local area network. So DrayTek switches support 3 types of spanning tree protocols. These are IEEE 802.1d spanning tree protocol, the IEEE 802.1w, and the IEEE I802.1s. That's a multiple spanning tree protocol. And the diagram here just gives you an overview of spanning tree. So here you've got the root or the master switch interacts with the other switches in the network to ensure that only one route exists between any two stations, and provides a backup link if any of the primary link goes down. So if one of the switches goes down or one of the links is broken, it should create a new path back to all the switches. So now I'll just go over to the next topic, which is the quality of service in 802.3 AD trunking feature. So the quality of service feature supports hardware priority queue, port-based IP version 4 and IP version 6 precedents, differentiated services, it's the FDServe and DSCP, and trusted QoS, and also 802.1p queue assignment. It's based on DSCP and class of service. And the 802.3 AD trunk with link aggregation supports up to 13 trunking groups with up to 16 ports for each group. But this will depend on the VigorSwitch model. The advantage of link aggregation is that it reduces downtime and is scalable and adds reliability to the network. So now we'll just go on to the next topic, which is central switch management. And I'll pass you through to Edward, who'll cover this topic for you. So I'm just going to pass you to Edward now.
Hello. We'll proceed with the central switch management. Now we look at the central managed system. This is a new feature and will be introduced into DrayTek router to let you manage Vigor switches from central console. We will start by looking at the central switch management. Central switch management provides a convenient and easy way to manage and configure Vigor switches. Instead of logging into each of these switches and work through the configuration pages, you can log into the router and centrally configure and deploy the switches in your network. You can also monitor the switch and LAN client status, as well as perform maintenance tasks. At the moment, the beta test firmware is available for the Vigor 2925 router, and soon will be expect the same features to be available for the Vigor 2860 and some of the new router being released this year. Here you can see the Vigor switches that are supported. These include the G1241, G2260, and P2261. Each of these switches will require the new update firmware to communicate with the router central switch management. Some of the supported features in the central switch management includes dual image, SNP version 1, version 2C, version 3, Harmon group 1, 2, 3, and 9, history, statistics, alarm, and events. IEEE 802.1AB, link layer discovery protocol, or LLDP, with LLDP MAD extension. IP4 version 4 and IP version 6 dual stack, and firmware upgrade via HTTP, HTTPS, TFTP console port. One of the advantages really mentioned on using central switch management is easy deployment. Here we can we have a screenshot of one of their configuration page. You can add a name and comment for the switch, as well as a copy of the existing configuration from another switch to speed up the deployment. VLAN configuration is also a quick and easy by using the graphic user interface. With a few mouse clicks, VLANs can be assigned to switch ports, and it will also update the router VLAN configuration. It will also auto-detect uplink and downlink, and also auto-configure PVID for the access port. It will also auto-configure a trunk port when multiple VLANs are selected. The PVID value can be selected from a drop-down menu. In the switch status menu, you can, at a glance, you can see the status of all attached switches. You can see the switch name, its IP address, the model number, and system uptime. You can also see how many ports are in use in each switch, as well as how many clients are connected. Where we have more clients than ports, this can be due to connection coming through an attached switch or access point, etc. The central switch management console will also show the model of the switches attached to each router LAN port. The color icon shows the different states of the switch ports. Port status include uplink and downlink port. The ports are in use or available or are in shutdown mode. Clicking on the switch port will show the port status. Here, you can see the port information. Also have an option to shut down the port. The central switch management maintenance section, you back up and restore the switch configuration. You can also reboot the switch or reset the switch to factory default settings. You select from the existing device on the left and move them to the selected device section and apply the required action. As mentioned previously, the firmware is still a beta release, but DrayTek will be adding more features as a firmware is further developed. Some of the features to be added will include VLAN priority, MAC address blacklist, MAC management, device search by MAC IP address, subscription, rate limit by port, and alerts. Before we finish, I would like to show you a video that allows you to demonstrate the central switch management features in Vigor 2925 routers.
Hello everyone. DrayTek has introduced a new feature in DrayTek routers that will let you manage attached DrayTek VigorSwitches from a central console. This feature is known as Central Switch Management. It is currently available for the Vigor 2925 router in the latest beta firmware, but will be introduced in the Vigor 2860 router in the near future. For our demonstration, we will use the Vigor 2925 router running the latest beta test release firmware. You will notice that there is a new menu option highlighted here. It is Central Switch Management. Clicking on the menu will bring up the various submenus. Clicking on the status menu will display the status of the attached Vigor switches. The switch hierarchy tab shows the router LAN port where the switch is attached, as well as cascaded switches. Unconfigured switches will show an X for the IP address. Clicking on the switch name will let us configure it. We can enter a switch name, copy the switch configuration from another switch, change the login password, and assign an IP address. Clicking on the VLAN tab will bring up both the router VLAN settings and the switch VLANs. The port tab is used to shut down required ports. After the switch is configured, it will appear in the status page. When we log into the VigorSwitch, we can see the parameters we had configured from the router. In the maintenance menu, we can select a number of actions. These are backup and restore configuration, remote reboot, and factory reset. Supported Vigor switches are shown in the support list and currently includes Vigor switches P2261, P2260 and P1241. Switches can also be placed in a group.